Hey guys, welcome back to Ride Review. Today we are checking out the Flex from Flyer. It's one of their new releases. It is a compact cargo and it costs $2,099. So let's go ahead and see if it is worth the price. Now the first thing we're gonna look at is gonna be the motor. Now the main reason we're gonna look at that first is because this is a compact cargo bike like I was talking about. So you are more than likely buying this because you either wanna transport stuff in the back, we've got this little basket here, or you wanna transport a small human. And this bag just flies out of here. And this is our setup here. Now this is one of those ones, it is probably just gonna be for one kid. I don't really see two kids being able to fit in here, so it's probably a single kid version, which means that, you know, we're probably limited with how much weight we could actually put on this thing just because of the size here. However, you are gonna want something that is fairly powerful as far as the motor goes. So here in the rear, we've got a 500 watt motor. This is a geared hub drive motor here in the rear. And this is something that has a decent amount of torque based on the riding I've done in it so far. This is a torque sensor, not to be confused with the torque that we're getting from the motor when we're talking about that. The torque sensor here is a little bit more of a traditional bike ride feel. So basically the difference is there's cadence and there's torque. With cadence, basically there's magnets in there. As you are pedaling, the magnets are going, you know, over each other, and it's going to be on or off as far as the power goes. So that's why when you get on some of those bikes, if you're in pedal level 5 from a start, it just kind of jumps, you know, up to top speed. But with the torque sensor, it actually senses how hard you're pressing on the pedals. So you get to control the power a little bit more. It's a little bit more of a traditional ride feel, right? If you think about a regular bike, the harder you pedal, the faster it goes. Same thing with the torque sensor. The harder you pedal, the more power you're going to get from the motor. So just, you know, a quick note there. We do have a throttle right here, so we can pop on this. We don't need to be pedaling at all. We can just use the throttle. But again, if we're doing that and we're not offering any assistance here in the motor or any assistance on the bike, then we're gonna be relying on the motor. So 500 watts, probably on the low end of what I would say is acceptable for a bike with this type of setup. Something that is, you know, 750 would probably be a little bit more valuable depending on, you know, how heavy the kit is in the back or how much stuff you want to put in the basket. But I think the 500 will do the job here pretty well. Now it might struggle on some hills and things like that, but if you're in a, you know, an urban area and you're gonna be doing a lot of flatland riding, I think the 500 watt motor will get it done for you. One of the benefits is it's sucking, you know, it's using less wattage, or it's pulling less out of the battery, I should say. So you probably would get a little bit better mileage on a 500 watt than you would on a 750, you know, all things being equal. And as far as range goes, it does come down to the battery, and the battery here, right here in the back, it is something you can, you know, pull in and out. Right here behind the seat post tube, pretty convenient location. Now, as far as seat post tube batteries go, it is one of the slicker looking ones, in my opinion. Usually you got those big like silverfishes or something like that in the back. This one, it's got a little bit of a sleekness to it, this Lightspeed design. I guess it's a Lightspeed design. Got some grip here for pulling it out. Now, as far as battery capacity goes, it is a little bit on the smaller side. So it does have a cool little handle here as well. So like I said, as far as the compartment goes, I think this is a pretty slick option. However, it is a little bit on the low side when it comes to amp hour. So this is a 9.8 amp hour battery, and that's not gonna get you too much range. 9.8 is probably gonna get you, you know, 20 to 25 miles, but they do have an upgraded battery version, which I believe you can either get it now or it's coming real soon. It's a 14.7 amp hour battery, so it's gonna be 50% more, and that's something you're probably looking at more like 35, 40 miles, something like that. But as it stands right now, it's not a long distance cargo bike at this point with this particular battery in here. With the larger one, you know, then it becomes a little bit more like, oh, you can go 15 miles out, 15 miles back, no problem. You know, probably a little bit more depending on, again, how much weight you have in the back and your terrain and whatnot. But as it stands right now, not necessarily, you know, long distance, right? You got to be upfront about that. This kind of goes back to the price point, $20.99 for something that's going to go 20, 25 miles. You know, it's up to you. There's a lot of bonuses here, and we're trying to, basically we're starting out with the battery, and we're going to see if we can make that up as far as the value goes. So the next thing I would look at is going to be some of the extra features here. Now obviously we've got a rear rack, which is nice. Any sort of cargo bike's gonna need this. Now this setup with the child carrying kit here, this is, I believe it's $199 on their website. I will double check that before I post this, just to confirm the price there. And that's gonna come with all the stuff you see here, which is the pad, the the child corral area up here, and then the foot pegs. So, you're looking at extra $200 to add this on there if this is the use case. So now we're looking at $22.99 for this kit as you see it here. Now, something I've always liked about the Flyer bikes is the aesthetic. So you look at it, we got this matte black, it's pretty subdued, it's got some cool lines to it. They've always had sort of a well-built vibe about them. I reviewed the first one, 2 years ago, and I think they've stayed pretty consistent with the fit and finish on these bikes, and I've always been a fan of that. So cool to see them kind of branch out into some different styles, but that is one of the main extras is this. So that's an additional cost, right? The extras it does come with a full set of fenders. So we got our fenders right here. It comes with the wheel well inserts here, that way to protect the the little legs. We've also got protection right here, which is nice. And then we've got our fender up here on the front. So again, we got that full set of fenders. We do have integrated lights. So we got a front light up here, decently bright, not something that necessarily is like your only source of light if you're riding at night. But if you got there's no light posts over here, but if you got some lamps and street lights and things like that, I think this will be good if you're in sort of, got some extra light in the environment. And then we've got our light back here. And then we also have our turn signals, which is nice to have the turn signals, because if you are, carrying a bunch of cargo, it's gonna be, less agile than if you didn't have cargo, right? That just is across all the bikes. So the fact that you got turn signals, letting people know where you're going, I think is a pretty big bonus there. So those are some of the extras that it comes with. We talked about the torque sensor, not necessarily an extra, but I'm a pretty big fan of torque sensors, so it's cool that it comes here on this bike. And then again, if you don't want to pedal, we've got our throttle over on this side. As far as safety things go, first thing I would look at, especially if we're thinking about, you've got your kid here in the back, is what is the stopping power like? So up here, we've got Tektro hydraulic brakes, pretty much a standard across e-bikes in the $1,400 to $2,300 range, pretty much a standard. These are dual piston brakes. And then we've got 180 millimeter rotors. You can see the 180 right here on the rotor there, or I guess you can't because I had my hand in front of it. So that's going to be, again, pretty standard. 180 is something I want to see, and the fact that they're hydraulic brakes I think is excellent. We've got a little bit more of a street-centric tire here. Now these are 24 by 2.4, so not 3 inches. They're not necessarily considered a fat tire, but they are there's a little extra cushion there, which again is nice because you're thinking about, you've got a bunch of weight back there, so being able to put more air volume in that rear tire is going to help out with stability and ride feel, and it's going to be able to support more of that weight there as far as just the tire is concerned. Nothing as far as like sidewall reflective stripes on here, which would be a nice safety thing to see. Not necessarily Flyer style. Again, it's a little bit more subdued, so I think aesthetically that makes sense. However, having sidewall reflective stripes on here would be a nice safety thing to see. We've also got a couple mounting points here to mount some extra carrying accessories. These are just regular Boss spacing, so you could put a water bottle holder on there or a little pack with a kit or something like that. So a couple of options there. We've also got a small mounting point down at the bottom, which I don't know exactly. You can put a lock probably in there without getting in the way of the fender. So that would be an option. And then we've got another spot here for mounting something. We got spots over there. So really there's quite a few spots that you can mount things here. And then we do have the option to mount a front basket right here in the front. So, as far as like carrying capacity, there's a lot of ways that you could kind of build this bike out to fit your needs, which is, it's kind of nice. Some people, they want to be able to carry the locker over there, they want to put an extra water bottle here, and the fact that you can do all that, I think makes a lot of sense. So, a lot of options as far as that goes. Now, from a geometry perspective, which would be something you'd want to look at, especially if you're buying this online, if there is a local dealer that carries Flyer, you can always go in and test ride it. It's the best way to find out if a bike's for you or not. But if you're buying this online, there's a couple of geometry things we need to look at. So the first thing is going to be our step-through height. So our step-through height here on the small medium, which is the frame that we have, this is 19 inches, and then on the large version, it is 19.5 inches. So it is going to go up about half an inch. So pretty easy. It's not a low step-through, but it is pretty easy to get on and off for most folks. The other thing to look at would be our carrying capacity. So 220 is the rider carrying capacity here on the bike, and then our total payload capacity is gonna be 330 pounds. The back rack, I believe, is rated for 80 pounds, which leaves the remainder for whatever you would throw up here on the front rack. So again, 330 pounds, quite a bit of carrying capacity here on a bike that's really not too terribly big compared to some of the long tail cargo bikes that are out there on the market. The next geometry thing to look at is going to be our minimum and maximum seat post, and that is really going to dictate, you know, what size rider can fit on this. So they say on their website 5 foot flat to 6 foot for the small medium, adds a couple inches for the large frame. You check that out on their website. But for this one, 5 feet does seem a little bit low for how high this saddle actually is. So right here at its lowest configuration to the ground, it's about 31.5 inches. So for somebody that is 5 foot, still might be quite a reach if they want to be able to sit up here and have, you know, both their feet on the ground, which a lot of people do. So if it were me and I was looking to, you know, kind of have both my feet, maybe not flat, but, you know, in a decent, you know, I'm on my toes at least. I feel like I've got, you know, some good traction there. Probably 5'2", 5'3" would be my recommendation before I would put somebody on this bike. Again, 31.5 inches, pretty standard, but I think 5 foot flat is a little bit low in my estimation. Now it says it goes up to 6 feet. I think that makes sense here. We do got these Rise BMX-ish style handlebars. So somebody who's 6 foot might not be straight up and down, but I think it'd be fairly comfortable for them to ride on here. And the other reason I would look at sort of our down height and think maybe, you know, 5 foot's a little bit low. If you do have either weight back here from the basket, or you do have your child back there, you do want to make sure you got a really good control of the bike. So if you do have to stop, you know, suddenly for some reason, then, you know, you've got a good handle and this isn't falling over, which you wouldn't want to do. Now you do have the option to come off here. It is a step through. But in my experience, most people, they still want to be able to stop the bike and feel like they're controlled without having to come off the bike. So I think that makes a lot of sense to me, especially considering, you know, we got some precious cargo in the back. So 5'2", 5'3" is what I'd recommend as far as the minimums go. Like I said, on Flyer's website, they say 5, but it's somebody who's 5 and spry and, you know, maybe a little bit younger and maybe doesn't have anything back here, or, you know, maybe it's an older kid that can kind of jump off and he doesn't have the rails on here. That kind of makes sense to me. But if you're talking about, you know, smaller child, they're using the rails, I would probably want to have a little bit more control over the bike. And that's, you know, just my opinion, but it's something to think about, making sure that, you know, you have some good support, you know, with your left leg and your right leg over there. Now the next thing to talk about is going to be our gearing. And we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get into the actual like riding of the bike and how it affects sort of the ride feel here. But down here we've got our Shimano Rapid Fire shifter. This is a 7-speed, and this is connected back here to our Shimano tourney. Now as far as the gearing goes, just based on the riding I've done so far, it's honestly not too bad. We got a pretty big chain ring up here in the front, and the 7 gears is good for most of the speeds here, but once you hit 20, you start going a little bit over the 20, I feel like we really could have done it with an 8th gear here, but it's not too bad, and we'll talk about that a little bit more when we actually get to the ride test. So not really a complaint, just if I was looking for, you know, ways we can improve the bike, I think adding an 8th gear here might make a lot of sense and just get us less of a cadence when we're going at that top speed. As we're over here by the handlebars, we do have locking grips, which if you guys have seen in my videos, you know that's something I usually harp on when we don't have locking grips, especially because, you know, thinking about we've got, you know, our precious cargo or, you know, groceries for the week back here. I want to have as much control of this as possible, and these are sort of an ergonomic grip. I mean, they are an ergonomic grip, but it's not a traditional ergonomic grip. They're a little bit beefier and they're thick and a little, you know, they're made of like this rubber material. I'm a pretty big fan of these. I kind of like the way that these feel. A little bit of a different feel again than some of the ergonomic grips, but I like these. The next thing to look at is going to be our display. So go ahead and turn it on here. And the frame rate is not quite synced up, so you're gonna have to take my word for it that it doesn't look like this. But it's gonna show us our pedal assist level, which we can raise with these buttons right here. 4 is our top level pedal assist. Let me go back down to 0. Then it's just a traditional bike at that point. Then it shows our miles per hour, our odometer. And if we press the power button, which is up here in the top, it's gonna show us trip, range, voltage, and then back to our odometer. So it's going to show us some things. We can cycle through a couple of different things there. Battery percentage here at the bottom. So we got battery percentage, and then right now it's at 52%. And then as we were talking about, we have to have those turn signals, so you can press and turn these on. You do get an indicator right here. It's going to show that the turn signal's on. And then here in the rear, our turn signal's on, which is nice. So we're going to turn that off. Now to turn on our lights, we're going to press and hold this top button here. Then we got a little light indicator down there. Again, I don't know if you can see it because the frame rate's messed up here, but down here at the bottom, boom, it's going to turn on our light. So we've got our light there, and also turns on our light in the rear. A little bit harder to see the rear light. Looks decent, I think, on the GoPro, but we're in Texas and it's still hot outside, so even though it's fall, it's still hot outside. So quite a few things you can do here with the display. And again, once you've got the bike turned on, and pedal assist level 0, the throttle is not going to work. But as soon as you put it into pedal assist level 1, then you can use the throttle. And we'll use the rear brake on this side, and that's going to stop it. So a couple things we can do here. Go ahead and turn it back off for now. So that is, you know, a basic walkthrough of the display here. Now the next thing to do is really ride it around and see how it feels to ride around. We'll probably end up throwing some weight back here, see if that affects the ride feel at all. But for now, we'll go ahead and just hop on there and ride it around like like you would do it if you didn't have a bunch of weight back there. All right, guys, we're out here for the ride test portion on the Flyer Flex, and we are going to go ahead and we've got it set to pedal assist level 1. Again, display doesn't look like that. So let's go ahead and, I'm going to use the throttle for a second because I forgot to downshift, as I usually do. Yeah, so start out in 1. Now, something I mentioned about that spring, it does make it a lot easier to ride no-handed because it kind of keeps it right where you want it. Starting at pedal assist level 1, again, it's a torque sensor. So when we're in a higher gear like this, we're not physically able to put in as much torque to it. So right now, decent little cadence. We're going about 7-8 miles an hour. At 7 or 8, I'd probably shift up to about 3rd or 4th, and we're able to put a little bit more torque into it. But it looks like one's keeping us right around that 8-9 mile an hour mark. You pedal assist level 2. Gets us up to about 13, 14 or so. Now with torque sensors, it's not really capping our top speed like the cadence ones do. Just for like a decent, pedal cadence, you try to figure out kind of where it's going to land you. So right now we're pedaling. We shifted into 6th gear over here. We're still in 2. And 16 is pretty doable. Going to put into 3. Definitely feel like we're getting a little bit more torque here. But right around 20, we do want to get into 7th gear on this side. So right now, as the bike comes, our top speed in 3 and 4 is going to be 20. I got a bug in my ear. So 1 second, let me get this. Is there a bug in my ear? It feels like there's a bug in my ear. Is that a strap? I don't know, strap or a bug. So right here in 3, let's go ahead and go up to 4. Now once you get into 4, it does have a little bit more torque. Now again, it's nothing crazy. This is a bike that's been, it's more designed for carrying cargo, so it's not super sporty, super torquey, just nice and smooth power curves, which, depending on what you got back here in the back, that's probably what you'd want. So let's go ahead and stop over here, and then we will test out the throttle. All right, so just using the throttle here. So it does take us up to right around that 20 mile an hour mark. And once you hit 20, you can kind of feel it backing off a little bit. So it wants to sit right there at 20. I can just cruise like this for quite a while. Just cruising. Now again, as far as stability and like ride comfort goes, it is pretty darn comfortable. Now, we don't have any suspension here, so this is one of those things that, you know, if you are taking it off-road, you'd probably notice pretty quick. Like for example, I rode here to work today, about 11 miles, and I've got a Zeus UU 1100, no suspension. And I felt, every time I had to go off-road, felt it. You feel all the bumps and, you know, something that doesn't have suspension. The tires on mine are about the same size, so I can imagine you'd feel quite a bit of the bumps and stuff if you have to take it off-road. But if you do plan on keeping it on the concrete, I mean, it's not too bad. You're gonna feel a little bit of the bumps and stuff along the way, but you know, it's really what it's designed for, is the concrete. Flat ground, as they say. Now, one of the things that I mentioned when we were doing the review was about the pedal cadence in our top gear here. So we're in our 7th gear on this side, pedal assist level 4. And so this is our top speed at about 20. Now you see, like, the cadence wise, it's not too bad. Not too bad. I feel like it could have done with an 8th gear though, because this is a little bit quick in my opinion for the speed that we're going, but it's not too terrible. And if it was a cadence bike, it wouldn't necessarily matter, because the cadence that we're pedaling at, as long as we're moving, it's going to go to that top speed, so it'd be less of an issue. But it would be, you know, most people consider that to be ghost pedaling. We don't have any ghost pedaling here, but it is one of those things that I think it would do well with an 8th gear, because I don't want to be pedaling like this. If, you know, I'm going 20 miles per hour, got my kid in the back, I'd rather it be a little bit slower as far as the cadence goes. But yeah, I mean, it pretty much feels and handles as you'd expect when we don't have anything in the back. So let's go ahead and throw some stuff in the back and see how that handles and what that changes as far as our ride feel goes. All right, so I rummaged around inside, and I think this is what we're gonna do here. This is about 40 pounds of e-bike batteries. So we got 4 batteries in there. Should be roughly about 40 pounds. A couple mock wheels, Jackrabbit Range Buster and a Velotrek. So let's see how she handles with a little bit of extra weight in there. Coming off the kickstand was fine, but we're really interested in our handling. Let's see. I can feel the handling a little bit, but it's nothing too crazy. It feels like they got a really good balance to the bike. I don't know how much that little spring in the front is helping. You have the, you know, the slightly oversized tires here, so yeah, that feels fine. How's it feel for you, batteries back there? How does that feel for you guys? I'm doing all that one-handed. Crazy. So yeah, I mean, really, as far as like handling goes, I feel like the weight back there doesn't really affect it that much. If anything, I feel like it feels like it's a little bit more nimble, because as I'm going into some of those turns, I can feel that weight kind of pull it over a little bit, but still, it doesn't feel unstable. I can feel it kind of pulling a little bit as I'm turning into those turns. So all in all, it feels pretty darn similar, in my opinion. And guys, I think that's going to do it for our review on the Flyer Flex. Is it worth the $20.99? That's up to you. Leave us a comment down below. Tell us what you think about the price point, what you think about the bike, and then we'll catch you on the next one.